Oh, look out. No bloopers. Rob's recording already.
Oh, I'll edit the shit out of this. You know that. I try to make us sound good.
You say you're gonna edit, you never edit anything.
Oh, the hell I don't.
Yeah, you'd be surprised the stuff in front of it is out.
Zing!
Bazinga.
All right, should we get this show on the road?
Sure.
Am I leading us in, or are you leading us in?
No, I think our guest star should lead us in.
We just act like it's
totally
normal.
This thing? I can start if you want me to.
Do it.
Welcome to Personal Flash Paper, Infinity Podcast with a focus on beginner topics in the game of Infinity. On this episode, we've got the Hobby Desk, and the main topic, big events and you, with your hosts,
Rob, that Baker kid.
Ryan.
And the strange voice, the Scott Tipsword, also known as Tip S-Word.
Hey, everybody. Look, Tipsword's on the show.
Wow, this place is going places.
Yeah, down the tubes.
Well, you know, it's a great ride, and we got great company.
Yeah, can't make my day any worse, I'll tell you that.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, your day sucked. So, What's everybody drinking?
I am drinking a Crown and Sprite, simply because I have no bottled liquor to drink. Well, I had lots of bottled liquor, but I didn't have any gumption. I didn't have any of that stuff, and I'm like, I got a bottle of Crown and a Sprite, and I'm good to go.
Good to go.
I am
Tipsword, what are you
doing? Some Tito's vodka with some soda water and a little bit of some flavor drops in there. Give it a nice. Taste, some black cherry taste to it.
Ooh, black cherry
Yeah.
flavor drops.
Ooh,
Nice. Look
nice.
Look at that fancy pants over there.
Fancy pants.
Mr.
This
Fancy
episode's going straight to the top.
Yeah,
we're gonna be that
straight-
upper echelon.
Yeah, fancy pants.
Oh
over
wait,
there.
I'm sorry.
Not in my lifetime.
I think I lied. I'm drinking Malort. I'm in Chicago. I'm drinking Malort. Only Malort.
Only Danger
Only
Rose
Malort.
drinks Malort.
Apparently,
Everybody else
which-
does shots and hates it.
Oh god, yeah, I laugh so hard about the whole thing because anytime somebody finds anything related to Malort, it gets posted and Tipsword gets tagged in it every time.
As he should.
I mean, do you own the company? I mean, it sounds like you're like the owner of that company. Maybe you should
No,
be their
but I
social
am-
media person.
I'm actually one of the founding members of the Knights of Malort, or the Malortian Knights, as we are known.
Yeah.
You are known as that.
Oh,
So-
also, Scott, I forgot before we get too far along. Hail Hydra.
Hail Hydra.
All right, Rob, what are you drinking?
So I'm drinking Boulevard's Flora Obscura, a dry hopped porter, and it is delicious.
What's that called again?
Flora Obscura.
Huh. And we thought Tipsword had a fancy man's drink. What the hell is that thing? Jeez.
It's a normal Boulevard out of their 24-pack sampler that you can buy at Costco, motherfucker.
Mm-hmm. Sounds pretty fancy there, fancy pants.
Well, when in doubt, pinky out, bitch.
Damn right.
So, we got the Facebook page. I posted the picture of the agenda, and Chris Daniel was like, wait, you guys have talking points? I'm like, we always have talking points. They're more of a loose guidelines, kind of a, loose confederation of papers and points to talk about for the next, hour and a half or whatever.
It is similar to our beacon in the night where, we may sail off several hundred miles in the wrong way, but sooner or later we'll fall back to light.
Yes, because the Earth is round.
Now, is it round as in a circle like a quarter? And
Spherical
flat, or
object.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
It's got to be spherical, otherwise cats would have pushed everything off the edge of it by now.
Yes, and for the record, if you are hearing a cat in this part of the episode, it is probably Scott's and not mine.
That is true.
Wow, I don't have a cat here. I could go down and get one of the dogs.
Why not? Just have it be a menagerie.
By the way, so if the Earth is flat and cats would push everything off, couldn't the cats on the other side just push everything back on? And so couldn't it just be flat but on both sides and have cats on both sides from the gravity? Because gravity is a weird thing and works weird ways.
Whoa, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
That's why Ryan was a scientist.
That's why I was a scientist.
Scientist.
That is called science. Thank you very much.
Please tell me you have a white coat at home that just says scientist on it.
So funny you should say that. No, I don't. But when I was in high school, my dad for work had this white denim lab coat that they used, and I took it and actually was my painting smock and had it all through high school and all through college. It was covered with all sorts of paint. and it vanished after I graduated. I still think my parents threw the box away that had it, but so I did at one point have a white lab coat that actually turned into a paint coat. So there, I've been a scientist for a long time now. Apparently, I was destined for it.
Destin, huh?
I think you need to have a white lab coat that says scientist on it. Rob will talk later. We'll make this happen.
Oh, we could do that for Fall Fest, Rob.
Oh, okay, yeah. We
gotta
just
make that happen.
broke into work, but no,
Yep.
yeah. So we need to get back to the community aspect.
Let's get back to the community.
And Ryan, you actually participated in the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Kansas City bowling event.
Well, we both did. Right. So a couple episodes ago, Rob and I had made a comment that we were participating in this charity event. And if you wanted to donate, we will post the links to that. We had several people from the Infinity community actually donate to us. And some of the names were people I'd never really even heard of, just people that were fans of the podcast and knew. So that was like great. I was $25 shy from being the top 3 of our bowling section, which means like all the different teams that bowled was there, and our team was only about $100 out of being the top 3. So we were pretty close. I was pretty pumped. I actually raised the most of our team, and most of that was due to the community. It wasn't money that I just threw in. It was actually people that pitched
legitimately donated. Yeah,
gave $5 to $200, which was really cool.
That's fantastic.
It was really pretty neat. I do appreciate all of that. And Rob, you raised some money too.
Yeah, I actually had. I was able to post it to my personal Facebook page, and people that I served with overseas donated money. It was really humbling for people that I served with over 20 years ago. Were like, oh, I remember bowling with you, and here, have some money, and it's a great cause, and good that you're doing things. And I reached out to White Noise's their messenger group, because they're also doing a community event for a children's network. And Ben from White Noise and I kind of talked back and forth about being more just a charitable conduit, right? Ryan, you said something about being a beacon of light. And I know, Scott, you have been involved in numerous things. Projects. And, talk about those, because you're big in the community. You're a big guy, big shot.
If you're referring to my fraternal organization ties, yes, absolutely. We do lots of stuff there, but however, through like Infinity and just gaming in general, I have participated in lots of events that have done specific charity fundraising, such as like Blood in the Sun has always done something that was initially a Warhammer fantasy started by Grant Fetter and Chris Yu.
Friends of the show.
Originators of the show.
Yep, they're like, papas.
The OGs.
Grandpa.
And so a lot of those different tournaments that I participated in, so my miniatures, if for folks haven't listened to some of the older episodes that I actually participated in, my miniatures tabletop gaming career started with initially Warhammer 40K, like a lot of folks, which then transitioned to Warhammer Fantasy, which I did for many, many years, helping with the Adepticon events as well. And then before, finally transitioning over to Infinity, which is my hobby love right now. But a lot of the early events that I participated in were all Warhammer Fantasy, and a lot of them had charity donations for re-rolls, and it would go to, like a local shelter for like women and children, or it would go to a local animal shelter, things like that. So I find that to be really, really good, not just for the gaming community, but the overall community that we all belong to. Of course, not everything can be, due to a re-roll. It's great to do what Raj did up at Mission Critical and make it part of the raffle. So if you want to get stuff, do a raffle, because re-rolls in some games don't make as much of a swing as it does in, like, say, Infinity. So you just got to make sure that you're mindful of how you engage the community to get them into some of those charitable events.
Yeah, and on last episode, Joel Vaughn, in talking about his plans for Renegade, he came up with 3 or 4 different, awesome type charities. Ocean cleanup, drinking water, And it was just like, oh my gosh, there are so many awesome communities that are out there that need money, need support. And as Infinity players and Infinity community overall, literally just stepping up to the plate and crashing through the boards. And it's awesome to see. So, I mentioned that I talked to Ben of White Noise about the Starlight campaign. That's why I was stuttering and stumbling through my words earlier, is because I was trying to figure out it wasn't Summerlight.
Drunk. Yeah.
Well, not off of one. Jeez, give my liver some props.
You've
but
been
I was
home
looking
for at least an hour and a half.
Oh no, I've got yeah.
You also didn't say it was one 12-ounce bottle. It could be one growler that you're at the end of.
No,
Look at the big brain on that guy. Did you hear that?
Well, yeah, but we
look at
live
the
in
big brain.
Kansas, and Kansas has 1896 fucking prohibition rules.
You can buy liquor. You literally live 10 minutes from the state line.
Right, of Missouri, the show me state that gave me my birth. Yes,
Yeah.
I am aware.
Yeah.
But
I
yes,
mean,
I
they
don't
leave
have a
us
growler
pot, so here
at
you go.
Costco. Yes. Shit. But I was talking about White Noise and Ben and the Starlight Children Organization that they're going to be running. Back on target, damn it. And they're doing 3 months of a charitable contribution. They're doing T-shirts, they're doing all this other stuff. And I told them that I would mention on the cast. There, my obligation is finished. Now back to our normal drunken shenanigans.
Actually, let's not go back yet.
How would folks that might not follow White Noise know how to make a contribution? Would it be going through their Facebook page? Is that the best way?
I will do some research on the Starlight organization, and I will put it in our show notes.
Yeah, so I know. So Rob and I had discussed this before because they had actually mentioned it a month or so back in one of their shows, and we talked about it. And that'd be something cool if we could get several different casts to kind of team up and just kind of push it out there to the community, and just kind of pick a charity that we all feel has some validity in there, and just kind of pump that up and just do it every so often. Obviously, we don't want to overwhelm people by asking them for money because, let's face it, not everybody has a mass amount of expendable cash. And in our community, the people who have a lot of money, or when people in our community get extra money, they're buying miniatures. Let's face it, that's what people are spending their money on. But it's just something we thought that would be a good just to keep to bring to light. It illuminates the positivity of humankind, especially in hours when that is really needed, when stuff's going on around the world, that people can do good things if they just come together and put their minds to it. I will get off my soapbox now.
Man, I think I'm going to cry. That was so special. I love you, man.
Thanks.
You had me at hello.
Oh, yeah. But the point is, with social media, with everything that can go on, and putting some good out there in the world, you put good out there, enough of us put a good out there that you can, it'll come back tenfold.
You put good out there, crits come back. I'm just putting it out there right now.
No,
that's what happens. Karma pays you back in crits.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, crits do happen.
You've heard it here first.
Yes,
Hold on.
crits
So
happen.
you didn't specify whether you're receiving the
Look,
crits
man, don't look too deep into it. Just accept it.
Just accept it. Shh, Scott. Shh. Just accept it. Shh. It'll be okay.
Breathe easy.
Oh yeah. So
all right.
yeah.
Let's move ahead.
Back to that agenda thing. What's on there?
Yeah. Are we on Hobby Desk?
Yeah, we're on the Hobby Desk now.
All right.
Oh my God.
Hobby Desk.
Speaking of hobby desks, Rob, didn't you just make a really kick-ass hobby desk?
Yeah, how about that? And I've been using it to assemble and clean models. I went back and got a whole crap ton of my Hakkaslam that I traded some 40K stuff for, and have been cleaning and assembling and washing at my brand new hobby desk. And it's so amazing. It's got a nice 4-foot daylight bulb. It's got 3 fans for exhaust when I get the airbrush out. I've got the airbrush compressor right next to it now. It's all wired. It's all plumbed. It's so pretty. So pretty.
Is it painted white yet?
Not yet. Not yet. Julie was working on one of the bedroom projects that she's got going on. So it's all primed and it's got all the things that she's doing. And I still need to take some concrete screws and a hammer drill and drive some 2x2s into the actual concrete of the foundation of the house so that I can hang some pegboard. And then with my brand new 3D printer that's still in the box less than 10 feet away from me.
What's in the box?
What's in the box? I'm going to be printing out a massive print or paint holder type caddy system. I've got it all lined out in my wicked web of a mind, and it's going to be awesome.
Nice. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Scott, what are you working on?
So, coming out of Mission Critical, I had this whole hobby project planned out that was going to be a little bit of the Hail Hydra with some
Hail Hydra.
conversions. It's hit a little bit of a snag because it was requiring some 3D printed material from someone I had found on the interwebs. And unfortunately, that communication has kind of stopped because it required some modifications. So that's been put on hold until I can get back a hold of this gentleman. And I have been assembling Operation Wildfire ever since Gen Con.
How's that going for you?
So the Shasvasti that I started with are some of the greatest models to assemble. It's quick, it's easy, it's one or two different pieces having to go together, or one or two different joins, if you will. So 2, 3, maybe 4 pieces for most of them. Is it the Caliban with the big back spines are molded into the larger pieces, so it's not little spindly, fidgety spines like old school Yu Ching, if you think about that. So it's not that, which is pretty cool. So they went together like a dream. The 012 that I started with a night or two ago hasn't been quite as smooth, but still pretty easy.
You know, it's good to hear that because as I've been assembling a lot of the Cap on Technical Services, the KTS guys, and they're, some of the older ones, it's 2 arms. One arm is the gun arm, and the other one's, holding the barrel or the stock assist or whatever, and the head, and it's so clunky because it's the old-fashioned ball joint, right? Where there's a round ball that goes into the round socket, and then you have to line that up with the round socket on the other arm. And, I love how Corvus Belli's evolution of modeling has just come so far forward with the square socket, so that way the arm goes onto that square nub. It lines up perfectly with the other square nub arm. So to hear you say that Operation Wildfire has got that same, vibe going forward, it really makes me happy.
It's great. Like I said, I think there was only one model where each of the 4 limbs was separate from the torso, and that was the Guelos. Everything else was assemble this half to that half, and you're done.
Nice. That's really. I mean, they've done a lot of work. I just assembled some of the old Drews, and I will tell you that I might have had to take my pliers out and bend some metal arms to make them attach, and I was getting very annoyed. So hopefully that's gotten better.
Yeah, I also assembled. Well, I cleaned a crap ton of the old Drews, the original 4-man box set, and the Spitfire. So Ryan, I know the pain that you speak of because it's just like, son of a monkey. This is just it's not going to line up. So you've got to bend it, pry it, apply force to it somehow to get it to just line up that millimeter or 2.
Yep. So that was on my hobby desk. I actually cleaned those while I was gone the last couple of days away from work, taking my stepson back to school in Arizona. And then before that, I had done my chicken bot conversion project, which I posted some pictures on when I finished those. So I've decided for my Akari that all of my remotes will be the Hakazam chicken bots.
Rock Chalk Chicken Bot!
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's so good. So I've actually I've converted them all a little bit. So like the Flash Pulse bot it just has thing antennas on it. The Forward Observer bot, I've kind of repositioned the gun and stuff so it's off the side. The Total Reaction bot has the HMG from the Alpha Seed band going back to the bot, and then my biggest one, which is my Ushi, is actually just made at a walker. It's big and bulky, and he's badass, but he needs to have some green stuff work and some other tubing and some things added to them. The problem I now have is that one of the lists that I have made for Akari takes 2 Budons and 2 Rushis, and that means that I need to make like 4 of the big giant walkers to make the match. So, yay for conversions. So.
I might have some laying around, kind of disassembled, that you might be able to use. I'll send them your way.
Sweet. Yeah, I have 2 that I still have, but they are in not great shape. Some of the pieces have come apart and broken. The metal have broken, but I still have 2 more to use. And then I'm going to start working on that. I want to get this first one done and get it painted up, and then step ahead with the next part of the list that I want to do. Let's see, what else hobby-wise? So I told you I cleaned the Drews and got those assembled, and that's going to be part of my contrast colors hobby experiment, where I'm going to prime the Drews differently. One just straight white, one with a zenithal going from black to white, one with just a plain black and do a heavy dry brush. And I'm just going to kind of test the same colors using the contrast paints and just see the different results as that goes along. I will obviously post results on our Facebook page for you all to then take that knowledge and do with as you will. And we're just going to see how that works out, just to see if I can save myself some time on, maybe an army that I have sitting around that isn't going to be my showcase army, right? But I kind of want to paint some guys. I have an idea for the O12 that I, want to have and just kind of paint up relatively quickly. It won't work for my Shazvasti because I already have some Morats and some Onyx, and those are painted to a higher level than the contrast is going to give me. So I think the Shazvasti, if I try to add and mix and match those, I think it will look weird. And although I look weird, I don't like my stuff to look weird.
Well, that's true. But do you think that even though your Morats are painted to style 9 and your Shazvasti, do you think haven't been painted? Do you think that you could paint your Shazvasti to a style 8 in a different type of style with the contrast paints? Because Shazvasti are Shazvasti and Morats are Morats.
This one goes to 11.
No. You scratch that in. You scratch that in with a stylus. So it only goes to 10. Just because you put 11 on it doesn't mean that it actually goes to 11, Ryan.
Now, while that's possible, I probably am not of the mindset that I would allow myself to do that. I would probably want them to be painted the same style and technique. Although I'm going to hold that until I start doing this experiment, until I get this contrast color experiment done. And then we can see if maybe I can adopt it. The biggest issue I'm going to have is any of the coppery rust metal contrast paints just aren't going to do that, so I'm going to have to paint those. And in most cases, anything that's the armor on a lot of my stuff, all the remotes, that's heavily that color scheme. So that's where the issue is going to be, I think.
That's fair. Scott, have you had a chance to use any of the contrast paints?
I've been able to use it on 1 or 2 test models. I had a bunch of Warhammer Fantasy extra plastic models laying around, so I've been using that. Haven't gotten the results I've hoped for yet, so I'm switching gears, trying different primers to see if that will get me what I'm looking for, and then I can start making that transition over to using them for Infinity. I'm hoping to be able to use at least 1 or 2 on my O12.
Yeah, I think most of my weapons from now on are going to be contrast, because I was able to get that relatively easy on just the Morat original test model, so I think most of my weapons will use the contrast. I'm hoping that I'll be able to get some of the other cloth pieces to be able to use just straight contrast within a highlight. I follow several really well-known miniature painters, and several of them done some contrast stuff, and I've watched them do some things that I think I can utilize to get some of those quick results on smaller areas. But I also have the new line of the Scale 75 artist acrylics that I need to start breaking into. So apparently now what I'm realizing is I have a lot of shit I need to get done. Start working.
Well, yeah. I think anybody that's listening to the podcast that has, played a few games of Infinity and gone hog wild in that faction or other factions has a lot of stuff to get done.
Yep. And speaking of which, I just got rid of a bunch of Yujing in a trade last week, and then just traded for a bunch of Yujing, so I've got a bunch more back. Apparently, Eugene and Hawk Islam, by the way, for those of you who don't know, I do a lot of trading of miniatures and stuff like that and finding deals. In some cases, it's really annoyed Rob because I've walked in and I'm like, hey, look at this $4,000 worth of miniatures I got for 12 cents.
Yeah.
Although he beat me 2-1. He beat me 2-1 a couple weeks back, and so I'm a little annoyed about that.
Yeah.
But I've had more Hawk Islam and Eugene go through my hands than any other faction, even the ones I had to play.
Yeah, and I've got a line on a pretty decent sized Ariadne thing for $35. I'm just going to go ahead and pull the trigger. For whatever reason, U.S. Ariadne is just coming my way.
I thought you already had everything.
I do. I'm just like, well, it's $35 for a whole thing.
Scott,
I'm like, yeah.
Scott, we don't ask those questions. You can never have everything.
Says the guy who's got every faction in his hobby closet.
Yeah. You're talking about you?
Yeah, me.
Yeah.
Oh, except JSA that made its way to me from Kansas. That got moved on to somebody else.
Wait, was that my JSA?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, was that our trade?
Yeah, because I got Scott's.
My introduction to Ryan was a Infinity trade deal.
Yeah.
Not only that, but I got your Ariadne stuff from Ryan.
Which was the other half of that trade. Nice.
I remember that. That's right. Funniest was we have a local guy who actually had some painted Ariadne stuff that he actually sold to Grant, and then Grant sold it or to sell it. And I was tempted to bring it and buy it back and just walk up to the store with it one day and play just to see if the guy knew. It's like, hey, that's my stuff.
Yeah, because he actually got back into Infinity and painted all the same stuff back up again.
Yeah, it was really pretty funny.
Oh.
All right. So, all right. So Rob has an idea for a focused hobby thought, and you want to talk about the organization of paints and supplies and tools.
Yeah, so, as we are literally reading from the notes, and I don't know why we're reading from the notes because we have notes for every show, but one of the things that I thought
we're trying to impress Scott.
Oh, was that it? Oh, I didn't know this was a tryout.
Yeah, I remember trying to impress Scott.
You guys forget I've met you before. I know this is a shit show.
Well, there is that.
Oh, yeah, that's why we had him on. That's true. Okay, never mind. It's all coming back to me now.
True. But as I am, essentially rebuilding my hobby desk, one of the things that I'm confronted with is, okay, how am I going to have my brushes? How am I going to have this tool? How am I going to have, this thing that I always use on my desk as I'm trying to, really minimize the space that I am utilizing for the hobby? And so I thought it'd be interesting to talk about, Ryan, you've got a dedicated hobby space. Scott, I think you've got a dedicated hobby space. And Ryan, you've got a mobile station that you take out to the living room or whatever whenever, you want a hobby, but, your wife wants to watch TV or whatever. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of talk about the three ways, or, your way, my way, Scott's way of hobbying and organizing the hobby stuff, because, Scott's got every faction in his closet. You trade the shit out of things for other things. And,
rumor has it Scott's got a lot of things in his closet. I'm just
well, I don't care. I don't care.
And rumor has it Ryan trades a lot of stuff for it.
Hey, you don't have to pay for it that way.
Well, it's a mutual agreement at that point. But the point is, we all want to get stuff done. We all want to paint, to whatever level that we can, the maximum, the minimum, whatever it is. But we want to get into that groove, get the painting mojo, the hobbying mojo flowing. And, how do you organize that? What's your method?
I'll go first. So like I said, I do have a hobby closet, so it's kind of tucked away. I've got a home office / guest room, and I get the closet in there. I do have, at least in there, the beginnings of organization. I've got little bins from the local hardware store that I keep labeled. Here's all my TAC. Here's all my US Ariadne. Each faction's got a label on it. I take the models out of the boxes, the big clunky boxes that I used to put them in, and keep them stuffed in there. It was too jam-packed. So that's when I went to this, where I take everything, it goes in that blue bin in the baggies. I write the name on the baggie so I know what it is still. It still has the Corvus Belli code if there's ever a question, and I notice there's a mispack later. So that's all in there. I just started putting my paint, which unfortunately, because that closet borders an outside wall, it seems like whoever built the house didn't have enough insulation in there, so in the winter it gets colder, in the summer it gets hotter. So I don't want to keep my paint in there to go through that temperature change. So I started putting my paints inside the room itself on a bookshelf, and I've got some paint organizers that I started getting, and they're across the top shelf. But the actual hobby space that I utilize is mobile. It's a basic TV stand. I set it up out in the living room. Once the kids go to bed, I'll get my paints out, I'll get my models out. I'll sit there, my wife and I will watch TV, and I'll paint. So it's mobile. It gets packed up when I'm done and goes back to where it started.
How much time do you get to do that like every night? Is that like once a week? How often do you get to pull your paints out and work?
It's usually 4 or 5 nights a week, and I've got the availability provided the day didn't kick my ass all over the place and I'm just too tired. But most times I do have the availability to do a vast majority of the nights of the week.
Oh, that's good. That's nice. So what would your like number one tip be on organizing your space?
Number one is definitely, this seems rudimentary, but keep it organized. Whatever your system is, where you know where you can get to it, because there was times before when, for the life of me, I could not find the extra blades to my jeweler's saw. So I came up with a new method, and when I was doing the GI Joes, let me tell you, that was the greatest thing in the world was having that jeweler's saw, and that's when I was missing the extra blades. As soon as that blade got dull, all it started doing was cutting up and chopping up the portions of the model that I needed to keep. I had to find those blades, so I had to make sure I came up with a specific spot, always put it back in that spot when I was done using it, so that I knew exactly where to go back and get it. So whatever organization you can come up with to remember where each tool is, that's my number one tip. Make sure you have whatever it is that works for you. Find that thing, stick to it every time. Don't get lazy by saying, okay, I'm too tired. It'll take hopefully an extra 10 seconds to put it back in the spot that you have designated that item for, so you know where to get it the next time. Otherwise, that 15 seconds that you're saving now is going to cost you 15, 20 minutes later when you're trying to find whatever you're looking for.
Yeah, and when you're on a time crunch or a time budget, like you and your wife are watching TV, and I'm assuming that the idea is that you're watching TV, you're hanging out, you're going to spend the same amount of time, then you're going to crash because you've got to wake up, rinse, repeat, and do the whole work day again, over and over and over. So, your point of spend the 10 seconds, put it back in its place, so that way you're saving the 15, 20 minutes when you've actually got, an hour and a half total of hobby time. That's a chunk of change.
It is. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It feels like, because you're right, everybody's got that designated set time in the day. We understand that you're tired, you want to go to bed, but take the time now to put it away properly, so that the next time you're not eating into that precious time you have that you've designated for hobby or anything else. Take the time now so you don't lose it later, because you'll lose it tenfold when you're trying to find that thing that you'd misplaced.
Yeah, and Scott, to your point of the bins from the auto shop store, so I used to have a whole massive D&D miniatures collection that I've since parted ways with, but I kept the storage bins. And my plan is, once the main hobby desk area is completed and it comes time to actually put the storage in there, I'm going to do the exact same thing that you're talking about, is tear those boxes down, keep those complaint codes, keep the Corvus Belli codes, because mispacks happen, but those boxes are so large and space just consuming. And tearing them down, putting them in blisters, putting them in the bins, that's a brilliant idea. Put them in factions, put them in things, so that way if you want to do a foreign company or Dashat or something that is non-aligned but has different units from different overall factions, you can go to that bin storage unit and be like, okay, I need this Hunzakut, and I need this Fugazi bot, and I need this whatever. And you can build your army because you've got the organization to do it, and you're doing it in a quicker amount of time, I would say.
Yep. I mean, I think that there's a lot of stuff that people can utilize that will really help them. I think like to Scott's point is once you get going, get it started, keep at it, keep doing it, so you'll get in the habit. I actually use the Plano boxes. So I will, like, those fishing tackle plastic boxes that have the little dividers that you can move. So I have one that's got all my combined army on it, and so I will open that up, and I actually do something different than you guys that I've just noticed is I actually pull the models out, and I will actually go through and check all the pieces and make sure they're all there, and then I pitch everything. So I don't keep the complaint codes or the number codes, the coverability codes. I don't keep the boxes. I did keep the boxes for a long time because I was building all the paper terrain and giving it to our local store for us to use and tear up because it then didn't matter. And I actually would keep the boxes. I will fold up the box wrappings of like the cover art just on file somewhere just in case I needed them later to look at. And then kind of once I get done building those models, I'll go through the line art box and just kind of pitch it because I don't need it anymore. But I also, on the back wall of my hobby desk, I actually went to our local Home Depot, which is just a large warehouse home improvement store for those of you not in the States. And they have this system by Rubbermaid called Fast Tracks. So basically you put one row of this track in and you can stack several rows on it. And then they've got all these accessories that just snap into those. So I have 3 bins that hold all my paintbrushes. Now these are my junky random paintbrushes. These aren't my really nice paintbrushes. They don't go in there. It's also got some little trays, and one of them is perfectly sized that my iPad sits on it. So it holds it on the wall out of the way. And then they've also got some that have actually a metal or a magnetic bar in them. So I actually have those on there, and like my clippers, my jeweler saw, my files all stick to that. So they're just up there on the wall, stuck to the wall out of the way. And they have a couple other little holders that you can get. So that's what I've done with all of my stuff. Now, over the years, I have collected enough that I essentially have multiple sets of hobby tools. So I have another set in one of the little Plano boxes. And so when I'm going somewhere or traveling somewhere and gonna be out, I grab that box. And that's basically like my travel kit. It's already packed up. It's already used, ready to go. The only thing it won't have in it is glue. I don't keep glue in there just because it's going to spill. I don't care what you do. You're going to spill your glue. And I have that. Now, the other thing, as Rob alluded to, was I built a to-go desk. It's not complete. It's still in the works, but I haven't needed to add on to it, so I haven't done it yet. It's actually an old wooden painter's briefcase. So it had an easel in it. It had a palette. It had some places to store some paints and things like that. So I've kind of broken it all apart. I replaced the hinges, so the hinges are removable. I can open it up and remove the top. I actually took one of my lamps and mounted it to that box, and it will fold up. It's got a place that has foam in there that I can slide up, and I can put tools in there. It's got a place that my water container sits, and it all basically folds up, and I can basically pick that whole set up and carry it like a briefcase, and then I can just set it down on a table, open it up, remove the lid, and plug it in and be painting. The lid doesn't have anything done to it yet. I'm going to actually add some pieces to that so I can actually put paintbrushes in there, probably a selection of some of my paints. So if I know I'm traveling and I'm only taking this certain set of paints, I can do that, take one piece. But all of my paints are actually in a battle foam case. I think it's 215 that actually has foam in it that holds the metal, holds the paint dropper bottles. And since I only use, for the most part, the scale 75 artist colors or the scale 75 scale color set, those are all in there with a few other paints, and it holds the entire line plus some extra. Now, like I said, I have gotten the artist colors. So those don't go in there, but I actually backed the Kickstarter, and so they have their own little case that they go to. Yeah, they're all nice and collected and stored. And then I do have a few of the contrast paints that I don't exactly know what I'm going to do with storage-wise yet. So essentially, I could, in a few seconds, have 3 briefcases that hold all of my hobby stuff that I would need.
Did you say beefcase? Oh, briefcase. My bad.
I mean, I could.
Beefcake.
Beefcase. I don't really know what a beefcase is, and I don't really want to know. I mean, I know what a beefcake is, But I don't beef case. That seems pretty questionable.
Case of
If
beef,
it's
man.
Yeah, case full of beef. If it's barbecue, count me in.
Yeah, I had a good barbecue conversation today.
Yeah.
It caused me to actually take off my glasses.
While we're on the topic, you still haven't sent me any amazing
I
KC
know.
barbecue.
I thought of that the other day too.
He wants your sweet meat in his mouth, man.
Doesn't everybody?
No.
No, they do. Trust me.
No.
Yeah. So I've done a lot to try to organize my stuff, but I've also done a lot to try to pare down the things that I actually need. Because what I noticed is I had tons of files, right? And I noticed I would go to the round one, and I would go to the flat one, and then the triangle one. Those were the three I used all of the time.
All the time.
Right? And so occasionally I use one of the other ones, but I'm like, I don't need all of these, which is why they're not all out on my hobby space. I only have a few of them out, right? Because as with anything, when you get into this hobby, right, you're collecting miniatures, you're going to start collecting some of the other pieces. You're going to start adding on some of those. And then it's just another form of the addiction of this hobby. Now, if you're not a big hobbyer, you're just going to have your X-Acto knife, probably a pair of clippers, maybe a file or two, and some glue, and you're just going to glue them together and go. But as you get more and more into it, and you want your stuff to look a little cleaner, want to remove mold lines, you start adding all this other stuff. I used to try a bunch of other glues and try to do a bunch of other stuff like that, and I've started narrowing a lot of that stuff down.
Yeah, but this is part of that evolution, right? Because you mentioned a jeweler saw. I've got a jeweler saw. Scott's got a jeweler saw. It's kind of a, just part of the evolution of, I want to hobby more.
Yeah, and that jeweler saw really came from my pre-Infinity days, right? When I was doing a bunch of conversions. When I got into Infinity, for the first several years, I didn't do any conversions because I was like, I only need one of this dude. And okay, I only need like 3 of this guy. Well, there's 3 sculpts, so there you go. I didn't feel like I needed to convert anything. Now, after Mission Critical, and then in the Black Lotus chat group, Will and Scott.
Hydra.
Yeah, Hell Hydra. Will and Scott got talking about it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. And so of course then I did start converting stuff because I have tons of extra free time to actually do that too. So, but it's just part of the hobby, right? It's just something that kind of passes time. You can make some stuff look fairly cool, really with very little effort. And sometimes it's just a head swap. It's just a weapon swap, an arm reposition, something like that. I think you can do some really cool stuff.
Yep.
For me, it's really when that artistic muse strikes you, like the G.I. Joe army, which is easily the biggest, like army I've taken on, like the biggest project I've tackled to date. That never would have happened before in the previous games I played. Just the artistic muse never struck me in that manner while playing either 40K, Fantasy, when I dabbled in Malifaux. It never struck me to do anything other than, well, this is the stock model. That works. But something about Infinity has gotten me to the point of, I want to see what else I can do with this. The stock model's fantastic. I love what the Corvus Belli sculptors have done. However, I want to switch this to hit my vision just a little bit more. And again, somehow it's this game that has awakened that in me. That's why I have such a love for this game, because it brings out that artistic side of me that I never really ever saw before when I was playing other games.
Yeah, that's cool. I wonder if some of that isn't the theatrical narrative aspect of Infinity, right? You get this when you're playing a game, especially if it's 2 fully painted armies on a fully painted terrain table, it starts making this world. And since there's only a handful of models, so some of that, I think maybe that's like you start driving that narrative, and then so your mind kind of like, oh, well, that's cool. Well, I'm going to make this guy. I'm going to reposition this. I'm going to do that, and you start building your own narrative of what your Black Ops Infinity group is doing.
I think that's one of the reasons why when I look at the hard case and the cowboy hat, and I look at the Wild Bill model, I want to love them individually, but in my Spec Ops mind's eye theater, it doesn't fit. I don't see, two cowboys on a nomad spaceship looking for, guns for hire or soldiers of fortune or whatever. And there was a company that Scott had turned me on to, that Tipsword had turned me on to, Anvil Industries. And I was looking at different heads, and they've got, some scruffy looking ruffians that have ball caps. And I'm like, oh, those guys. So I reached out to him and asked about the scale, and he's like, oh, no, sorry. This is more for the GW scale or Heroic 32 or Heroic whatever it is. And I was like, oh, that's so sad, because in my mind, that's what a hard case is. A dude that's chomping on a cigar, ball cap backwards, armed to the teeth, been through it all, seen it all, and just looking to get paid.
Really, you can't picture a futuristic rogue Texas Ranger trotting the space station looking for that, payday or that outlaw on the run. Because I could totally see that in my mind's eye. I could totally see that as a character cruising along that I would definitely want to play.
That's
can.
The beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. Everybody has their own vision and their own mind's eye.
Look,
so
just because people are wrong does not mean that I have to agree with it.
So basically what I'm trying to say is you're both entitled to your own wrong opinions.
Oh, dick. No, but and that's the thing is, we've talked about different games in my mind, this is how these guys should act. And that's not how they translate over into the game in any way, shape, or form. And for me, it's more of the slow tectonic evolution of me understanding, no, this is a game piece. In the future, this guy would have this cowboy hat because XYZ reason. And so for me, it's the mental gymnastics of just getting past my own predisposition of what sci-fi is.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that leads to kind of my O12 ideas. I don't like my the dudes without helmets. I kind of want my O12 to be the militaristic police. Granted, I get that that's more Eugene, really, but that's not the vision I have. So I'm going to find heads that have helmets on them and probably do some head swaps on all the people who don't have helmeted heads, which is kind of the same thing that was happening with Scott when his Black Lotus Hell Hydra project. But it's just finding those sci-fi helmets that fit with me. For example, and I can't remember the movie. I think it's was it Divergent? Maybe that there's a part where they actually escape the city and the military force comes through and they're all wearing these black armor and these helmets and stuff like that. That really, I was like, that's kind of cool, and that's what my vision is there. But
yeah, or if you've seen the Netflix series Altered Carbon.
Although I was late to the game, I didn't have Netflix. I recently watched it, loved it, but I know what Rob's referring to here. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the quote-unquote bad guys that Kovacs was a part of. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to, Rob.
Yep, that's exactly where I'm going, because there was I didn't catch the guy's name, but it was on the WGC Facebook page. He posted a Yadu, and it was all black. It was beautifully painted, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's badass.
I saw that today, and ironically, those are one of the sets of models of helmets I was looking at, and I haven't seen them. I haven't held one up and compared the size of that head yet.
Well, it's probably a good match.
Yeah, like a good sized head.
That's
really?
what she said.
I was gonna say nobody's gonna say it. Jeez, we have Tipsword on the show.
I'm just gonna leave it there.
That's what she said. I'm just gonna leave that there.
Do all the listeners know why my name is synonymous there? Was it mentioned in a previous episode?
We have mentioned it in the cast, but for those of you who don't know, the That's What She Said became Tip S-word or Tipsword. It became Tipsword at Rob's in my work, because that way we could say that without getting in HR trouble. But it got to the point that we used it so often that everyone then knew what we were talking about. So it no longer had the code that we had once had.
Yeah, because, for whatever reason, if you use the same code words, people will start to figure it out.
Yep. And I think it was the fact that we giggled every time afterwards when the other person heard us say it. We'd walk by and Tipsword and needed and then people were like, what? And they're like, oh. Hey, why don't we take a musical interlude and then move on to games and revelations
And Revolution.
and revolution.
Musical interlude.
Does that mean we can go refill beverages?
If you need to go refill a beverage, okay, so right meow, we're going to talk about games we played and revelations we might have learned. Rob, you played any games?
I did play a game. I played a game, our last league game. I don't know who won the league because, who cares? It's just playing for fun.
There were prizes, by the way. We were not just playing for fun.
Yes, prizes and, pride and prejudice. So my last game I played, it was the Daedalus Falls version of Frostbite, which was like Hot Core or something.
Rob, it's Daedalus's Fall.
Daedalus Falls.
It is not Niagara. It is not Niagara.
Daedalus's Fall.
Daedalus's
Right.
Fall.
Whatever. And we're back.
Yeah, you got it. Good job.
Yeah. So I played a game, and it was the books version of Frostbite, which is Hot Core or something like that. And my opponent and I were using the Comlog app and just looking at Frostbite and playing the game, and everything's going according to his plan, not my plan, because my dice were just not with me. And I came up with an idea of, I'm going to go into retreat and I'm going to do these things. He's got tunnel vision. It's going to work. And it did, except in the books version, retreat is not an option. So we called the game, and I had won Frostbite, or would have won Frostbite, and William would have won the Hot Core game. So I told Andrew Haar, who was running the game, I was like, hey, man, no, William won, and I lost, and it was not enough points to his lot more points. But it was a great time. It was so good. He was running Akari, I was running USARF, and it was a ton of fun. What about you, Ryan?
So wait. So your takeaway from that game is what we covered just like an episode or two ago about, hey, maybe read the rules of the scenario you're actually playing.
I did read the rules.
No.
I read Frostbite.
You did not read the rules of the Daedalus's Fall.
So yes, I read the rules. I had prepared my game plan. I had done all of those things to give my opponent the best game possible, and it was a tight game. It really was. William, who is a very good player in the Kansas City area, he admitted, he's like, I got tunnel vision, and I was going for that corner, and I was going for this thing, and I should have done, what I had done in moving forward observers up into the center zone so that I could get those victory points and flip those switches. And he didn't do that, but, because retreat wasn't an option in Hot Core or whatever it is, he won the game. So it's great fun.
Nice. Yep, I finished the last game of the league. The outcome was not necessary because at the point of starting the last game of the league, I was in first and I had 9 points. And even if the next nearest guy massacred his opponent, he would only have 8. So I had secured the victory in round 3. Thank you very much for the Black Lotus.
Hail Hydra.
Hail Hydra. So I was pretty pumped about it because it means that for my first 3 rounds, I had scored major victories, and I don't know the last time I've done that in any official capacity. So I was feeling pretty good. But I played in the last round, which was limited insertion. Akari, I don't feel is great at limited insertion because I can't take the yan-yans. I can't take all the small point things that actually really play a pretty vital role in kind of how Akari functions. So I kind of threw together a list. It had a lot of big badass things in it. And kind of we started playing the game. Now I was playing another local guy, obviously because it's a local league. And he was taking vanilla Eugene, and he deployed like 6 models and then let me deploy. So I deployed all but my one reserve, and I had one TO camo and one camo token on the table. The TO camo I didn't have on the table, but I deployed it. He deployed his reserve model, and he asked something about him having a tag, and I was like, well, I figured you probably did because the stuff he had out there wasn't that big. It wasn't like a lot of big stuff out there, and he actually had a tag sitting over at the side of the table, which I actually didn't really pay attention to, which is really funny because he did that on purpose because he had listened to our episode where I talk about your sideboard models. So he had put a tag there to throw me off my game. But knowing that it was limited insertion and knowing the chance of a tag being there, I didn't really think much about it to begin with. Had he done that and it not been limited insertion, done some things different, I might have actually saw that, but I was still like, oh, that was nice. That was a nice little mental game he's trying to play there. So he deployed his reserve, I deployed my reserve. Now I was going second, and so I kind of turtled up in a corner to force him to come at me, because although he cheated, but it's fine because it actually didn't really matter a whole lot. Because he pulled
Did he cheat by bringing 300 points to a 200-point game, or was that somebody else?
He did not cheat that bad. That son of a bitch just cheats all the time. So
all the time.
Yeah. But so anyways, he had the Mowang. The best part about this is I get to say the best part about this game is he pushed the Mowang up into my grill and put it in suppression fire. And trust me, you don't want to be suppressing fire by Mowang.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I thought about the whole time. Like, that's just going to be funny to say. It's going to be hilarious. But he really got it. He did get it positioned up there, and really it was a problem, right? He was actually taking out my alpha seed, but he goes to my turn and I'm doing stuff and I'm trying to take it out and I'm affecting it a little bit, but I can't get rid of this stupid thing. So I'm having to take some other routes and do some other stuff. And I basically then took a forward deployed camo token, which who knows what that could be, and move it up to the midfield, not being discovered. And they come out, and then I surprise shot with was a DEP against his. Oh, it wasn't the Mowang. It's the big dude with the neurokinetic dual missile launchers that I can't think of its name for Eugene right now. And I took it down, like in one surprise shot from a little fish man in the middle of the field, which was glorious. Because
was it the Yan Huo?
Yes, thank you, with the neurokinetic double missile launcher. So that thing was going to be a pain, but I removed it now, so that was awesome. And then I finally got the Mowang taken care of, but it cost me quite a bit of orders. It goes to his second order, and he's pulling his order pool together. He goes, do hidden models add to your order pool? And I go, no. Then he goes, then I cheated you first round, because he built his whole order pool. I didn't even think about it, to be honest with you. But the Mowang has NCO, and he has the new lieutenant that has lieutenant level 2. And so he didn't spend any of the lieutenant orders his first turn. So when we did it, basically, he just gained himself like an extra order that he wouldn't have had. So we're like, whatever, let's just keep playing. Because, again, I'd already won the league, so it wasn't going to be that impactful. But I was like, let's just see what happens. Right, so we keep moving around, we keep going, and pushing forward. But then he had his third turn, he had a hidden ninja run up and flip a switch. He revealed a couple other hidden things, because he had, was it 2, 3, maybe 3 hidden models? 2 definitely, that we talked about. Revealing those in the time, because he had a hack Tau with HMG hidden that he didn't reveal until his third turn or my third turn, and by that point I just think it was too late for it to really have as much effect as it should have. So I think if he revealed it earlier, it would have been more impactful. But we keep going. I had a hidden model over on the same side of the table, away from where the action was, that he had. His hidden model was a ninja killer hacker. My hidden model was a ninja killer hacker. So on my turn, my ninja killer hacker revealed and moved up. Well, it moved up and then revealed to hack his ninja killer hacker, which we rolled the same number on the dice and pushed. So I had to spend another order. By the way, I was in loss of lieutenant at this point because that was the third molly I'd hidden was the jump troop with the explode, and he jumped down and landed on my lieutenant on his third turn. But it was okay because I annihilated it with a bunch of other stuff. But it had done its damage, so I was in loss of lieutenant, so I had to spend a command token, my last command token, to spend on the ninja killer hacker because I needed him to be dead. And so I did, and I killed it, and it actually gave me the victory to, like, it was like 9-0 or 9-1, which gave me my fourth and final major victory for that league, which I was actually pretty excited about. And kind of happy that it played out that way. But it was a fun game. We talked about quite a few things about what could be done differently, and I think some of it was relying so heavily on all the hidden stuff, but waiting so long to actually put them into play. I think had he either used his combat drop troop on the first turn or the second turn and drop it on me, it would have severely hampered my killing run and my strike there, and then he would have had all or a lot more of his tools available to actually come up and pick me apart when I would have needed to be in a lot more defensive mode and on the back foot, but I was allowed to push up and kill stuff. So that's my thing that I think that I learned the most about that is it's like, if you're going to have that many hidden things or things off the table, you've really got to plan how you're going to reveal them and when you're going to reveal them and what makes the biggest impact.
Yeah, timing is everything. So you made mention that you were playing a local guy. Have you recently played a non-local guy?
I have recently played a non-local guy. So I took my stepson back to school at ASU, which is in Phoenix, Arizona. There happens to be another just small podcast that you may or may not have heard of. I don't really know.
There's other podcasts other than us?
Yeah, apparently. That's what they keep telling me. Anyways,
that's what we keep listening to.
Yeah, Maya Cast is hosted in Chandler, Arizona, and I was like 15 minutes from the game store, Games U, that they run out of on Mondays, and I had reached out to Tom and Kip and said I was going to be down there, and they told me to show up, and I did just that. So I showed up, and they gather about 2 or 3 in the afternoon because apparently nobody in Arizona works full days. I actually mentioned it to them, and they all laughed, and they said, it doesn't matter. You go to a bar at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's going to be packed at all the places in Arizona. So I found that hilarious because it was not the first time they had heard that.
Why do I live where I live in Arizona then?
They don't have Malort. They don't
Scorpions. That's why you live
there. Rattlesnakes. That's why.
Also, it was 113 degrees, and
although
they say it's a dry heat, let me tell you, 113 degrees is still freaking hot.
It might be a dry heat, but so's an oven.
Yeah, it was warm. But so I actually met them, and I talked to Kip, and he and I played a game. And I played against Kip's converted Deshat army that is all Mandalorian and having Boba Fett heads, and it's cool as hell. It looks so good. I took my Onyx at that point because my Akari is not painted, and I wasn't about to show up in a foreign area with an unpainted army. So I took that, which of course they laughed at me like, you can play unpainted. And I'm like, no, I know I can, but I'm not about to do that. So I took my Akari, or my Onyx. We had a really good game. I had forgotten a few things about my Onyx that I remembered later, which I was able to capitalize on some of it, but not to the advantageous aspect that I really wanted to. But we had lots of nice critical rolls at the right time. I took his Rushi down, I think, like 3 times and just couldn't put the final nail in the coffin. And his engineer would just walk up and bring it back to life. McMurder would just walk up and chuck smoke over the top of it, and then it would continue to shoot at my stuff. McMurder did nothing but support his Link team's advance, which was really pretty funny. We were both talking about how much of an attack piece that is. and he used it almost entirely as support. So
Mixed support.
yeah, but it worked very well. I mean, it really did what the smoke ability that he had. It was really pretty powerful because it allowed the Rushi to go in and remove a lot of the pieces that I needed to do things with.
Yeah, the Rushi will do it.
Yeah, I love the Rushi. It's such a good remote.
I think both of you love the Rushi against me, especially.
Yeah. I will say that MayaCast is winning the MayaCast personal flash paper game right now. He won 10-0. It was almost a 9-4, but my E-drone made a run for his side of, if we were playing frontline, run for his deployment zone. I got in, or not his deployment zone, his side of the table, my far secure. He got up there. His lieutenant, which was up on a building, took a shot at it, and he missed. And so I spent the next order, my last order, to push him up into his side, getting close to his HVT, which is going to cancel out him being close to my HVT. Took the shot. He hits me, and I failed the armor roll. So I did not. Yeah, but it was the last order of the game, the last dice roll of the game that swung it from a 9-4 to a 10-0. But it was still a lot of fun. We both had a pretty good time. And then afterwards, they all go to a bar that's just down the street that has $6 hamburgers, and they play Golden Tea. And I sat there with them until like 10:30, 11 o'clock with that whole crew and chatted with them. The cool thing about it is that community is huge. I think we had 17, 18 people there Monday night.
Wow, I know
just
you
for
can't
a
see.
standard game night. That's awesome.
Just for a standard game night, and they said that that's normal, unless they thought they would have a low attendance this week because of Krug was just not too long ago. Gen Con was just not too long ago, but they said that's fairly normal for them to have.
They heard you were coming and they wanted to show up.
I mean, I'm sure that's what it was. I will say the funniest part is Kip introduced himself to me, and I'm like, I know who you are. I recognize your voice. And so he started laughing, and they all started giving him shit about it. And they're like, oh, God. So then Kip and I were playing, and I start chuckling to myself. Kip's like, what? I go, hey, Kip, you know how you were talking about recognizing your voice and people were giving crap at it? I go, yeah, I recognize your voice, but I've also seen your picture, so I know it's you. But I know that this is Professor Willett standing next to me simply because of his voice. And then at that point, they all started laughing. And I hadn't met him at all. I hadn't seen his picture at all. I just heard his voice. When I heard him talking, I'm like, oh my God, that's Professor Willett right there. So
that's funny.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. So we chatted. But they all went. I mean, not everybody goes to the bar afterwards. A good group of them go to the bar afterwards. And it was just kind of cool. We hung out there, just talked BS for a while. Also talked Infinity for a while. They have a challenge that one of the guys started doing, and they were trying to build a 0 SWC list that would be viable.
Oh.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. That was one of the things that they are working on. Apparently, a few of them are really trying to think about how can you do that? Can you do it? Is it viable?
I think I want to try that challenge.
I know. It sounded pretty interesting. The things that I learned in that game against Kip was, I need to remember what my stuff does, because I moved Kernow way up, who had my Xenotech attached to him, and then I got up there, and I was like, oh, shoot, I could just shoot a picture right here and do all the things that I'm trying to do now, which I ended up doing, and I was able to kill some of his stuff with my killer hacker and be in a position, but I would have been better served shooting both of his pictures and one of them shooting it back where it's a little more hidden, so he can't remove it as well, and then kind of moving some other stuff around. But I didn't do that, but that's all right. It was still fun. It ended with McMurder and my Zeodron in base contact, and that's pretty much where they stayed for like his part of his turn 3 and all of my turn 3. I just didn't even try to move him. We were on a table that was laid out perfectly for Miles' super jump. We both had Miles' super jump. Neither one of us jumped at all. So it was kind of funny. But it was pretty neat. For those of you who saw on, I think it was the WGC, the green squared terrain that was set up like an ALF simulation. I think it was black.
Yes, looks amazing.
Yeah, that guy's there, and he had that table, and I looked at it, and it's pretty cool. And I saw how he did the mat and everything, and I'm like talking to him for a while, and I'm like, that's brilliant, because he went to a local fabric place that does like automotive fabric and industrial fabric, stuff like that, and got neoprene from them.
Oh,
Yep.
that's brilliant.
Yep. And then he literally, it's black, which is all they carry in his place. And then he masked it off and primed it white parts, and then put the green over the top, because if you try to put the green directly over the black, it's just going to soak it up. So you have to put the white down first. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Seeing it in public, seeing it in person really makes it pretty sweet looking. So those are my games.
We might need to talk him into bringing that up to Adepticon next year.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty neat.
So Scott, what about you? Played any games lately?
You want me to follow that?
Well, yeah. You got to, because I already shot my load.
Yeah,
Ryan's just went on and on and on about Kip and the Arizona love. You're up.
Sadly, I have not been able to play any games lately. I've been spending most of my time hobbying and TOing at Gen Con. So that's what most of my recent Infinity love has been focused on.
Well, since you bring Gen Con up, why don't we switch this around and do the main show topic?
We can do that. What would you like to know?
Everything.
Tell us everything.
I'll do my best. So
well,
I was lucky enough.
Let's do this. Why don't you do it like this? Why don't you talk about quickly the big tournament things like Adepticon and Gen Con that appeal to you for that, what you do at those events, and then why you keep doing those. And then if you pulled out anything from the seminar, because I'm sure most people have seen the slides, they've watched the video. So, I mean, you don't really need to rehash what was released in the seminar, but just kind of go on, like, what is your impressions of those big events? Because I have been to neither Adepticon nor Gen Con. So maybe what draws you to not only go there, but donate your time.
Sure, that's a great starting point. Thank you.
Yeah, and from my point of view, Scott, I've been to Adepticon, and Adepticon definitely appeals to me because it's all miniatures. Gen Con, it's 60,000 motherfuckers up in there that I
70.
Oh, 70 Jesus. And one, it's a much larger crowd. It's double Adepticon. And two, not everything is applicable to miniature games. So why would someone want to go to Gen Con as opposed to just going to Adepticon? Might be another point to bring up.
Sure. Well, let's just start with, maybe not everybody listening knows that Adepticon is literally in my backyard. It's 15 minutes from my house. So I've been attending every year since 2008. I had previously, at one point before that, it was either 2005 or 2006, attended once to play Warhammer 40K. Beginning in 2008, it was all Warhammer Fantasy up until 2016. Well, excuse me, Warhammer Fantasy, then Age of Sigmar. 2016 is when I started straddling the line, helping with Age of Sigmar, playing in Infinity. 2017, I played only Infinity, made the full jump in 18 to only play Infinity and help TO Infinity. So since then, it's been only Infinity all the time, as far as helping out. So why I do the donation of my time is it goes back to community. This goes all the way back to the early days of me playing fantasy. I like being able to meet and talk with everyone there, and also be able to just basically help everybody else have that fun. If I'm there as an attendee at such a large event, I'm only going to influence the 4 or 5 people directly that I'm playing in that event. So over the course of the 4 days, it could be 20 folks. If it's a different opponent every single game through the course of those 4 days. if we're talking about running an event, I now have the potential to influence the fun and the camaraderie of everyone that walks past there. We're talking well over 100 folks, well over 500 folks, depending on what gaming system we're talking about and what year we're talking about. That's the thing that brings me the fun, being able to foster that fun through as many possible people as I can, and then being able to revisit year after year with those same folks that I get to see, if I'm lucky, once a year. If I talk about Adepticon, there's folks that have come. I've got friends now on other continents because of Adepticon, and I look forward to seeing them every single year at Adepticon. That's why I donate my time.
Nice. So your payment is not like you don't get any financial backing, you don't get any of that stuff. It's just basically because you donate your time, because you develop this community, you develop these friendships. It's the personal interactions you get with other people. It really just pays you in a different sense than it would be for something like, well, I'm going to go up there, but I'm going to charge the company X, Y, and Z to do this or that, right?
Absolutely. That's what it is. It's you're right. It's not a financial payment. It's something I want to do because it makes me happy to see everybody else enjoying themselves.
That's cool. And I think that's a lot of the times when you see people running big tournaments, I think a lot of that is what their driver is. Like, they're like, okay, I can put on this big event. I can do this 2-day tournament. It's going to give these other people, it's going to cost me a lot of time and energy. And in some cases, depending on how the event's set up, personal money, right? You're going to invest some of your own money into getting terrain or getting bigger surprise prize support or doing what have you, right? So it's just that I'm gonna do this for the community because I believe in this community, I believe in this game, and I want to help make it grow and help it be strong and help it have a good sense of just camaraderie and enjoyment, and that we are all playing this game to relax and have a good time, and not necessarily we're gonna win because I want to get that top prize. It's just kind of like this this is just relaxing and enjoyable, and we're just gonna be pals.
You're absolutely right. And talking about the not wanting to win the top prize, to me, it's never been about finishing first in any tournament. The greatest thing I could ever get coming out of a tournament that I'm participating in is having my fellow players really like the hobby that I've put out or the theme that I've put out. That's so basically no scores but soft scores to pull that phrase again. That's the piece that I've truly tried to focus, and that goes all the way back to my Warhammer days. I've focused on that fluff piece of it. What is the theme I'm putting forward? And I'm in my office right now. That the only 2 awards I've ever won in anything that's tabletop gaming related are because of my theme.
Nice.
That is, I treasure that because that's something that, again, going back to fostering the community, it came from that community and not only that friendship, but that respect from my fellow gamers and hobbyists that enjoyed the thing that I was able to put out there and spent so much time on.
Yeah, I will say that you do the no scores but soft scores thing. I have a plaque that hangs on my wall from a tournament in fantasy where I won best sports, which means that all of my opponents gave me top votes. And part of that I really think is great is at that tournament, I actually had 2 people that I played that I 20 owed them, and 1 person that I played that I 19 won, which means I massacred 3 of the 5 opponents I had, and I still got their vote for best sports. And I think that shows quite a bit about some of the community. And like, to me, I'm like, okay, so this is somebody who had an enjoyable game, even though they were getting rolled over, right? So I was like, that to me was probably the biggest victory I've had in any of my events. That tournament wise. So I think it kind of goes hand in hand with that idea of the community is a little stronger because we have people who don't care as much about I want to be a top dog and win. It's they want to care. I want everyone else to have a good time. I want this army to look cool. I want to spend my energy in promoting the soft cores, right?
And with that, Scott, can you speak to the growth that Infinity has seen at Adepticon and Gen Con? Because I've been to Adepticon 3 times now. I've never been to Gen Con. I know, shocker. But the 3 years of back-to-back going to Adepticon, it has been, small, medium, and large, and I don't see any stopping. And I think it's because, the community itself is growing. What have you seen?
Thank you. That's a really good point, Rob. Actually, I've seen that as well. The first year I played in Infinity at Adepticon, which my very first ever ITS tournament was the 2-day 5-game Grand Prix in 2016. Let me tell you, I learned a lot of stuff that weekend about what to keep doing, what not to do. Got my teeth kicked in, but you know what? Had a blast because the community was welcoming, and you learn a lot more from a loss than you do from a win. So
Oh yeah.
it was amazing. The Trying to think back to it because I was so nervous, I guess is the proper term, because I'd maybe played a handful of actual games of Infinity before I just said, that's it, I'm jumping into the deep end of the pool. So I don't really remember how many folks we had. So Adepticon, for folks that don't know, takes place, or has for the last, I believe it's 5 or 6 years, at the Schaumburg Renaissance Convention Center, excuse me, in the western suburbs of Chicago. There's a convention center and attached adjacent hotel. We'd always been stuck away. We Infinity had been stuck away in one of the smaller, like, so they've got in the hotel, there's a large ballroom, except they've got those dividers that can, you can put them out or you can put them back in the wall and make it one gigantic ballroom. Well, for at least from 16, 17, and 18, they had that room divided off. So they had one larger section where Warhammer Fantasy and Age of Sigmar was, but they also had, like Malifaux and Guild Ball and Flames of War and a couple other things in that section of the ballroom. But we were all the way around on the other side, sectioned off into the smallest possible section that you could get. I think we had 24 total tables maximum in that room. And this is keep in mind, a miniatures focused only, with a few exceptions of some board games that have miniatures in them, like Aristea, convention. So the fact that we could maximum fit 48 players is fairly small when you're talking about, what, 7,000+ folks going through this convention. That was in 16, 17, 18 we had in that room. Unfortunately, I can't speak to the number of attendance, like how many people filled that room in 16. I'm pretty certain for that 2-day Grand Prix or whatever it was called, that we didn't have all 48 slots filled. I do know in 2018, when I first started helping with the TOing side, we most definitely had all 48 folks at those tables playing. We had a wait list for the championship, which we had switched to a 1-day, 4 games in 1 day championship. That was, I believe it was the Saturday of 2018. That was chock full, and I believe, Rob, you played in that.
I did. It was awesome.
So Scott, from your perspective on, let's say, Adepticon and running events there, what have you seen, or have you seen a change in the atmosphere of the attendees of the Infinity events? Have you seen a shift in any of that? What's the maybe? Oh, I'm trying to think of a good phrasing of this, but kind of what's the feel of that? Those tournaments, especially compared to each year over year, and then compared to maybe some other games that people may be playing.
So I think the word of mouth from the attendees from previous years is starting to spread, and get around to other folks, because we're getting more and more people signing up and showing up. So we've got lots of repeat folks, which is good, because not only did they enjoy themselves enough to spend 4 to 5 days in Schaumburg, Illinois, at this convention with these same people over and over again. So we're not rehashing. To me, it tells me we're not rehashing the same stuff over and over again. Because if you're showing up to the same event year after year after year, and it's the same missions, the same flavor to it, the same after hours, because we do run a bunch of after hours nighttime events. So folks that might be participating in several of the hobby seminars throughout the day, or they might be, playing in a different systems gaming tournament, because we do have a lot of folks that play multiple systems around here, and please, we encourage it. Just spread that love around. But that's how we help with that, by running a nighttime event. We have actually switched some of those up year in and year out. Some of them are strong staples, like Prison Break and the Tag Deathmatch, because who doesn't love big stompy robots smashing the crap out of each other? But we've also introduced new and different things, I think, pretty much every year. I think one year we had remote racing. One year they actually ran uh, Clowns versus Pills. They actually did an Akira narrative based on a Neo Tokyo board. I think that was 2015 or 2016. Unfortunately, I can't remember which year it was, because that was before I was fully involved. I had just started hearing about Infinity. But the fact
Yeah, but there's also the Yojo event that you ran this past year.
there is the Yojo event, I'll actually get to that in a second. Uh, Circling back to Ryan's question of what I think is happening with the community, and again, Rob, to your original question about this, about the growth in 2019, this past year, we actually were asked by the overall Adepticon organizers to move into the main room. So we're talking not just from the ballroom into the slightly larger ballroom, but we're talking about all the way into the actual convention hall itself.
Oh, does that mean you're at the big table?
We are at the big tables because, for two reasons. One, we're growing. We outgrew our space because we have so many more folks wanting to play Infinity at Adepticon. That's number one. Number two, they want to show off the amazing tables that Infinity brings to tabletop miniatures. They want those showcased in the big room with the good lighting, where everybody is walking through and can see it. So they wanted to actually showcase Infinity. So we're hoping, so we went from those 24 tables to 30 in 2019, and we're hoping we can get some more added for 2020. But the meetings are just beginning now for Adepticon 2020, so we haven't talked about space allotments just yet.
And room blocks go on sale tomorrow.
Room blocks do go on sale tomorrow, which is August 16th, depending on when this gets out there. I did post uh, the highlights of the specific dates, because they do go on sale based on how many nights you're staying. So going on sale tomorrow on August 16th is a minimum of 4 nights in the hotel. There are later dates that will have, if you're staying, I think, for 3 nights as a minimum, or 2 nights as a minimum. But what I can do is I can actually uh, forward that exact same post on the Personal Flash Paper Facebook page, so that all those folks, all the listeners, can get access to that as well. I did put it on WGC Infinity, though, already.
And you also put it on the Midwest Infinities Players Group.
I did. If anybody is in the Midwest, they did see it spanned in multiple locations.
Nice. So, you said that they're just starting to talk about the size of the rooms, stuff like that. Are you planning anything new? Rob mentioned you did the Yojo event. Are you planning to rerun that? Are you planning something different for next year?
So the Yojo event, I know Rob talked about it a little bit, briefly, I believe, on the episode immediately following Adepticon. It was a narrative event that I ran, uh, co-created with Tommy Back. It was his initial idea. I took it, put some ideas together, then we circled back, and together we kind of made some adjustments and some edits, and formed it into what it actually became. So it was a narrative event that allowed for the playing of Infinity with the proper Infinity rules as they exist today, with the G.I. Joe figures and Cobra figures from the 80s. So from, at least for the three of us on here, from our childhoods. We played with the vehicles as the terrain. We were able to assign each one of the models to a proper Infinity profile. Thankfully, because it wasn't a narrative, I didn't stick to any one faction. Yes, Cobra was mainly from Hakislam, and G.I. Joe was mainly from Ariadna, but I found in Infinity what was the proper profile that actually would fit that G.I. Joe world character, and stuck with it. Like, I used Saito Togan for, I believe that was Storm Shadow. Might have been Snake Eyes, I can't remember which ninja, but I very specifically think it was Kitsune for one of them, Saito Togan for the other, just because it properly fit the theme of the narrative. So, Ryan, to answer your question, it was such a big hit because we actually used 6 players versus 6 players, and we had divvied up, okay, here are the preset player cards. So we gave, I think it was 3 to 4 models, figures, action figures with their profiles on a laminated sheet. Here's the 6 Cobra players. Here's the 6 Joe players. There was a very thematic way to determine who get to play Cobra Commander and who got to play General Clayton Abernathy, aka General Hawk, that fit each one of the teams. So Cobra Commander, you had to give us your best Cobra Commander impression. It wasn't shocking that Bostria himself, who was playing in the event, gave us the best Cobra Commander impression, so it was very fitting and it was a lot of fun. But then for G.I. Joe, we specifically made it very diplomatic. We had them offer up nominations between themselves and vote from those nominations who they thought should be their leader. And I think someone that's actually on this cast right now got voted in on that.
Yeah, it was this guy, that Baker kid. He is diplomatic suave.
Yes, yeah, that's what he's known at. That's what you're known for. You're diplomatic suave. Yes, that's exactly what you're known for.
I'm pretty sure I saw a couple dollar bills change hands.
Dollar bill, y'all. Cash rules everything around me.
Are you sure you didn't see
He
him?
promised to drink everyone else's Malort shots instead of them having to do it.
I thought it was
Booze.
I thought it was all the times he just crawled out from underneath the table that got him the extra votes.
He told me he was dropping dice accidentally.
Hey,
He was dropping something.
lobbyists, baby. Lobbyists get shit done.
So it was a big success, great hit. Everybody had a lot of fun. I had a friend of mine make some G.I. Joe and Cobra cookies. I had patches made, the whole thing. Huge success. In a roundabout, long-winded way, the answer is yes. Yo Joe is coming back in 2020 with a different narrative. We've learned some things in the one we ran in 2019. The people want it. The people will get it in 2020.
Nice. So, what do you do for Gen Con then? Do you do the same type of stuff or do you do different stuff for the Gen Con?
So for Gen Con, this year was the first year I actually have volunteered. So my history with Gen Con goes all the way back to when it was in Milwaukee. Because I'm in Chicagoland, I was able to go in high school and early college. So it was 94, 95, 96. I went up when it was in Milwaukee. Life got in the way. I kind of had fallen away from, to me, I went up there for role playing and card games. And I kind of stopped that, as I'd grown up, and I didn't know Gen Con was so into miniatures games anymore. Because up until, like I said, in 2016, I was mainly playing GW, and I believe GW didn't have a huge presence there, so I just kind of discounted Gen Con. But when I found Infinity and I'd learned that Corvus Belli themselves were at Gen Con, they brought a bunch of new releases. There was tournaments, things like that. Grant and I made the drive down in 2016. So it was my first Gen Con again in 20 years. This time now in Indianapolis. Was able to make that drive down and start attending again. So I played in one tournament. That was the Thursday tournament in 2016. 2017, which was the 50th Gen Con. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it to. But in 18, I was able to show back up, and I tried to volunteer to help, but all the slots were full, which is great because I love the fact that we had so many volunteers, and it's my fault I wasn't able to find out. I was able to attend until really late. But I did show up. I hung out with a lot of the guys at the Infinity tables. I met up with other friends that don't play Infinity, at various times throughout, and then just wandered the halls. So the difference, and I know Rob was asking about this a couple minutes ago, the difference between the two. So Adepticon, like you said, is focused on tabletop miniatures solely. They do have a rule where you've got to have everything painted to a 3-color minimum across all game systems. They don't care what the normal rules are for that system. They specifically focus on that ability to hobby. They want to see only painted figures on the table. Gen Con has got everything under the sun that involves gaming. Role-playing games, because it was started by TSR back in 1967. So of course it's got a role-playing history, and that's still a very, very strong presence. You've got trading card games, collectible card games, which also makes sense since it was, I believe, purchased by Wizards of the Coast back up in the late 90s. I'm not sure who officially owns it. I don't know if it's still Wizards of the Coast or if it's a new subset that's just Gen Con only. You've got board games. You've got a little bit of actual video games. I've actually got some rooms that are set up with, they're like an arcade. You've got social interaction games where you actually have to have 10 plus players and you actually have to wander around and act out your part and actually speak with each other about it. I'm not talking, they do have LARPing as well, but this one's a really fun game that I played last year called Two Rooms and a Boom, where you actually have to act out your part and ask questions and try and figure out the whodunit, and each team is working for a slightly different goal. One of them's going to win, the other's definitely not, or they're both going to lose. So that's a social interaction game. You've got that there, and you've got tabletop miniatures. You've got everything you could possibly think of, and because they've had so many years at this, they've grown it to such a large scale that not only do they take over the Indiana Convention Center in the heart of downtown Indianapolis, every hotel nearby, every restaurant nearby runs a Gen Con special, and Gen Con has taken over Lucas Oil Stadium, which is where the Indianapolis Colts play, and gaming happens in every conference room in that building and on the field itself. That's how big this has become.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
That's massive. I didn't know that it started in the 60s.
Yeah, I knew it's been around for a while.
Yeah, the name Gen Con is short for Geneva Convention because TSR was headquartered in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which is just over the Illinois-Wisconsin border. And I believe it was a play on the fact that, well, it's a kind of like a war game. The Geneva Convention itself ended, and of course I'm going to forget which world war it ended, but it ended one of them. So they made that like nice little play on it by calling it Gen Con.
Yeah, I knew that Gen Con started from basically wargaming, and that's how Gary Gygax, who did the whole Dungeons and Dragons, met Dave Arneson, who was also heavy into the D&D. That's how they met, was at the Wisconsin Geneva convention. Gen Con Zero, I think, is what they called it. But I didn't know that it was in the 60s. I always thought it was in the early 70s. So
the question you asked, Rob, was which one would people want to go to? I encourage both if you're a fan of all different types of gaming. If you have even a single hint of wanting to appreciate or enjoy miniatures gaming, the great part about Adepticon is it doesn't cost you any actual entrance fee to get in and wander the halls, walk up to the vendor area, which is significantly smaller than it is at Gen Con, because Adepticon truly is about that hobby aspect, that tournament aspect. We're here to play the games. They do have a really good size to me, a good sized vendor area, but it's very focused on. You've got some miniatures companies, so Corvus Belli, Games Workshop, Battle Foam, because they're intricately tied to miniatures gaming. You've got a couple of those big vendors there, but then you've also got a couple terrain companies, like Death Ray Designs and some other folks like that, Mats by Mars, some of those ancillary ones, but they're all focused on miniatures gaming. Whereas Gen Con, you've got vendors from every single one of those gaming genres that I mentioned. So it literally is a massive undertaking in and of itself at Gen Con. That's why Gen Con, you've got to pay the badge fee to even get into the vendor hall, the gaming hall, anything like that. Adepticon, it's free to wander around. They want people to come in, see these beautifully painted miniatures, see the terrain, wander over to the vendor hall, the vendor area, maybe pick up the game. Maybe they'll come back the next year with their own painted miniatures, and now they are paying that small fee to get in the door, which I believe is, I think, $35 or so for the 4 days at Adepticon, as opposed to 110 at Gen Con, just because it is so much bigger. So I would say if you have even just the slightest hint of wanting to learn more about miniatures, do Adepticon, even if it's just to wander around, look at what people are doing, talk to folks, do a demo. Gen Con, if you like different miniatures games, so if you focus only on one system, it might not be the thing for you because you've got to pay that heavy upfront badge fee. And a lot of it literally is wandering around the vendor hall or the gaming hall, which is a totally separate gaming hall in the convention center, and learning about different miniatures games. If you focus on one and you're dead set on one game and only one game, Gen Con really isn't the place for you unless that one game is having like a national championship that you want to play in. The real benefit to Gen Con is being able to go, one, see all your friends that you see maybe twice a year because it's another gaming convention. Two, you get to see and have that interaction with all these other systems. Like I said earlier, I ran between myself and Sean Poschel, we ran the tournament on. Sorry, Sean Poschel, friend of the show. On Thursday, we ran the tournament, and then Friday it was Sean and myself and Dave Seeley from Cincinnati. We ran the slightly larger tournament on Friday. After that, I was free to wander and do demos from different games and check out what's the newest release from Fantasy Flight Games or just anybody else. And that's the biggest part, is just being able to wander and take it all in and see what else is out there that might again trigger that hobby aspect or that gaming vision that you have. What scratches that hobby and gaming itch that you have?
Cool. So Corvus Belli is there in both Adepticon and in Gen Con. They actually have representatives from Spain come over, plus the local war corps that come up, plus the volunteers that help run the booth and run demos and all of that stuff. And they do a seminar on both, right? Typically, that's where their big reveal of some upcoming releases for the next year or big changes. I think Adepticon, isn't that where they show the calendar of releases, or is that Gen Con? When do they? I don't know which one they do that. I think it's Gen Con, isn't
They,
it?
they,
They've
they
shown
show
the
they show
calendar.
both. They show both.
Yeah. So was there anything, since Gen Con was the last one, is there anything at the seminar that you were just taken back by, that you were like, oh, like super wow, like I've got to get that you didn't know was coming out?
I think the one thing that I'm going to say is not going to surprise anyone, because I'm fairly certain if you go back and listen to the live streaming that Sean Poschel did and posted directly to WGC Infinity, you could hear as soon as the N4 hit the screen that said N4 2020, you could actually audibly hear the breath and the whoa, like Keanu Reeves level whoa, come out from everybody in the room. That's the biggest surprise, and I believe N3 we've been playing since, was it 2015, I believe. So it's been quite a few years, and I know there's been a lot of concern, especially around the internet, about rules bloat and nested rules and things like that. And I think the game is at a really, personally, again, this is my personal belief, the game is at a really, really good place. They could just deal with a little bit of cleanup around a couple of those edges. If you clean up some of those mechanics and truly make it easier to follow as specifically a beginner without knowing, I got to look in this rule, this nested rule, to see that yes, indeed, martial arts has stealth, which that's actually a really good example to me of I have of a nested rule. But if you can clean it up and make it a little simpler, I think that'll truly help take the game that we all play and love and grow it even bigger. So I'm hoping that's what we're getting at N4, is just not a huge shift like from N2 to N3, but more like a cleanup of N3 to make it just a little bit cleaner and not as much of some of the special rules and the nested pieces. Make it a little bit more intuitive, and it should be smooth sailing from there, I think.
Cool. Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what they do. I think, as you said, that I think the big focus would be kind of cleaning up. I don't want to say simplifying some stuff, but maybe, just making things a little clearer, and like you said, much smoother, would be great. I think we have a rules bloat esque, right? There is, but there isn't really, because I don't think we have rules that stack. For instance, some other games, like War Machine and Hordes, would be like, you take this unit and it does this, but then you add this piece and it does this and this. You add this piece, it does this and this. You do this, and you can totally transform how that thing functions, and your opponent has to know all of that to have a chance. So I don't think we have that type of rules bloat, but I think that, just like you said, the nested rules, not knowing that rule X actually has rule Y and Z embedded in it. So I do think that would help clean that stuff up. The Morats are a great one. We don't really need the Morat rule. You can just put the actual rules in their sheet, so people can, like, oh, that's veteran, so I don't need to worry about that, right? So I think that would be cool. So we've seen Adepticon and Gen Con both grow, not just as tournaments for Infinity, but as conventions. So there's this huge surge in the miniature gaming, or actually just the gaming world in general. And I think a lot of that has to be the community-driven aspects of a lot of those tournaments, a lot of those games. I've been in several games, as which I know both of you have, that you're like, this is a really cool game, and then either the community that's playing that game or the company that's running that game just aren't the nicest or the most open, or the most engaging. And so basically, people that would drive, the people that would put their efforts into promoting a game, running a game, doing things with a game, just have no desire to do those things for them, and that eventually leads to their death, right? Whereas I think Infinity, the company Corvus Belli, seems to be really engaged with, like, interacting. I know that they have had several representatives on many of the other podcasts. I know that we have had Robin has talked to one of their people about coming on our cast. And so I think that's a really important thing that makes Corvus Belli really support the community, and then the community of people who are willing to donate their time and donate their energy. You're like, well, the company is willing to invest in me also. They're willing to take part in this. They're not just producing a game and saying, here, give me your money, I'll give you this game, and now you go out and promote my game for me and do this thing. They're willing to, roll up their sleeves and really get in there with the team and interact, because I know you had Bostria, play the Joe. So I mean, that's really cool. So he's interacting with those people. He's playing with the people that are involved in his game, and I don't think that is necessarily always the case. But I think that's one of the things that really drives our Infinity community to keep going at it, keep putting the time in, keep playing the game, and have such energy for such an extended period of time.
That's a good point. I think Infinity, in the way it's played in and of itself, lends itself to having that more interactive community. If you think about other games that we've played, not to name actual games here, but there are times when your list build that you got off the internet is going to stomp mine in the face, and I just sit here and do nothing except roll a few dice. You tell me how many I'm rolling, and it's done. Infinity, you absolutely have to enter into a social contract with your opponent. It's unwritten just by simply the fact that you showed up to play Infinity, to work cooperatively with each other to make sure that this game is being played in the right manner. Because when it's your turn, I still have to say, hold on, if you go there, these 4 models are going to have an ARO. Is that what you actually want to do? Or, I don't have to necessarily be upfront about it. It's, my opponent moves and says, okay, what arrows do you have? Okay, here, and here. Here's what each one of them are doing. You've got to have that social contract of working together to make sure the game is played the right way. And again, that's every interaction I've had. I know there's probably other folks out there that might have had not the best experience with at least a game or two here and there. But I think the way the game actually plays lends itself to that more open and welcoming community that we do have that allows for that interaction, not only with the volunteers, the workhorse, but also with Corvus Belli, the company itself.
Yep, I would agree. Rob, you got anything to add? You have been kind of quiet. Did you die?
No, I didn't die. I was just I have been laughing at Scott's cat because I'm like so many people are gonna be like, that's Rob's cat, that's Rob's cat, and I'm like, nope, not me. No, I do agree that there was a Adepticon seminar that Bostria did where there was a cartoon of Joe Q Gamer, and he's got 3 or 4 models that he's thinking about, and then he's got 4 or 5 Kickstarters that he's waiting on. And he's got this, and Corvus Belli has done a great job on thinking about the models that Joe Q Gamer is thinking about. I mean, we haven't even touched on Defiance and how that was revealed at Gen Con, and that's one of the
it's so much fun.
That's one of the things that I'm super stoked about. I mean, I have literally been squirreling away my allowance money so that when it drops, it's not a huge hit.
Yeah, it's going to be something else.
Of a game, but it's not going to be a hit to the wallet.
Right, yeah. No, it's going to be a huge hit to the wallet, and I don't want it to be.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. We'll see how it comes out, how the mechanics work. I know that they had some demo pieces of it, some test games at Gen Con. I heard some pretty good things about it, but we'll see what they produce. I mean, it's kind of cool.
It was really cool. So I did get to play a quick demo game with a couple folks where it was 4 of us as players. Bostria was kind of the GM. He did say it's set up where you don't actually have to have a GM that's running the Shasvasti. You can actually specifically, there are cards that you just deal out to the enemies, and when it's their turn to activate, you flip over the card and you do what it says to do on the card by following the rules. It could be shoot and retreat, and it tells you that's what you got to do. Shoot the nearest target, retreat from that model.
Oh, wow.
Anybody
so it's got a very AI type feel to it.
Yes, absolutely. Or is that EI?
No, it would be EI. Ooh, nice play.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's got a really cool aspect to it. We got to demo it for about 20 minutes or so before Bostria and the rest of us had to run off to do the seminar, because that was on the seminar day on Saturday. But it's got some great gameplay. It is using the Aristea dice, which is really easy and intuitive because it's labeled right there on your cards, which includes not only the character cards, but any additional add-ons you have, like extra armor, special AP bullets or whatnot. It tells you exactly what things you need to achieve that, which to me is easier than you got to hit higher than a 6 to do that. No, I'm quickly looking. Do I have enough exclamation points? Yes, done. Boom. This piece goes off. So it had a lot of really fun gameplay, cooperative. My only suggestion is when you're playing, don't forget each one of the nuances of the win conditions. Do not kill the pilot of the Defiance in turn 1 like I did.
Oops.
My bad.
My bad. No,
Did they announce when they were going to launch it as a Kickstarter? Because I know that's one of the points of contention for some people. But did they announce? I don't remember if they told when that was going to be going.
Fall of 2019.
2019. And
Next couple months is when the Kickstarter should be going up.
Right. And the thing that I'm worried about with Kickstarter is the ability for Corvus Belli to fulfill it. And that's, one of the things that Bostrier said in his, seminar was they understand that there is, a lot of delay for a lot of Kickstarters out there for the actual fulfillment. And that's a concern for me. I'm just going to be honest.
Well, I think a lot of those issues, what you do, if let's just take some of the other ones, Zombie Side really kind of triggered a lot of this, is that when they add all these stretch goals, right? We're going to this way, this stretch goal, and what happens is they have so many stretch goals that when they hit them, they actually can't produce all of the stretch goals. So I've actually been a part of a couple Kickstarters that are like, hey, we've got 3 levels. Here's our stretch goals, and that's it. Once we get to this level, we're not going to add any more stretch goals because then we're not able to fulfill or playtest. Shadows of Brimstone, which is a flying frog who make my favorite zombie game of all time called Last Night on Earth, did a couple Kickstarters for another game that they have, and that's one of the issues they had is they got so much stuff they just had to fire out all of these game pieces and all of these mods and all of these things that they were just overwhelmed. And I think that's the trap that a lot of Kickstarters can get into.
And I believe Bostria told us, I think it was Bostria that said it, there's a couple Corvus Belli folks there that I spoke with about Defiance at Gen Con, is I believe they said they're hoping to mitigate a lot of that by doing the manufacturing in-house. They're not outsourcing it to another company, say like in China. So there's never going to be any delays there. They're doing it themselves in-house. So that should hopefully mitigate a lot of those delays that we've seen with other Kickstarters.
They better have those spin casters just, top of the line, fully maintenanced, everything. Because from what I've seen and from what I've heard about, the amount of Shazvasti that's going to be coming out, all God's children are going to be having Shazvasti for Christmas.
You get a Shazvasti, and you get a Shazvasti.
You get a Shazvasti.
I actually believe
Am I a
happened.
Shazvasti?
I believe
you might be a
Speculo. The Speculos have actually invaded Corvus Belli, and so they're like, well, I tell you what, we'll just produce all the Shazvasti here, we'll just make our own, and so that's actually how the EI is taken over.
I'm good with it.
All right, well, we've been talking for like a little over 2 hours now, so why don't we skip the rule and just kind of go into wrap up so this episode is not massive.
Another massive...
Works for me. I've done a lot of talking about conventions. I'll let you guys wrap it up.
All right. So if you want to reach us, Facebook, Personal Flash Paper, on the Twitter at Flashpaper News, email personalflashpaper@gmail, and Ryan's got that hooked to his phone, or you can leave us comments on iTunes.
All right. Thanks everybody for sitting through and listening to the 3 of us jabber on about the game that we all apparently really like.
Jabbers?
Yeah.
Jibber jabber.
No. Just go and jabbers. There you go. Just shout out to that group.
Oh yeah. No soft score or no scores but soft scores.
That's where that came from. But I hope that you got something out of this as a listener. Just even if it was just entertaining for you to listen to us kind of talk about it for a while. If you have anything you want us to cover or talk about from our limited point of views, let us know. We're always open to that. I think one of the things that I always take away from this is the different people we talk to, the different people I go to, is that we all, doesn't matter where we're coming from, we all come into this as with the same mentality of we're going to play a game, we're going to have a good time. I don't care what your political position is. I don't care what your views on, whatever random thing is the hot button issue at the time. It's like we're going to sit down and we're going to play this futuristic game. We're going to check out of what's going on in the real world and what's going and just have fun. And I don't, going to the Arizona group and hanging out with them, I was welcome in there. They invited me to come out, and have burgers with me. They invited me back. Like I said, my stepson goes to school down there, and before I left, and Tom said, hey, if you ever need somebody to step in and do some adulting that's here on site, let me know, and I can come over. I can go over and chat with him, or go over and do what you need, which is really cool, because considering Tom doesn't know me, right? He didn't have to do that. It wasn't necessary, but he was, and I could tell he was, honest about, like, hey, if you need somebody that's down here, that's an adult that needs to go do something, you let me know. And I think that's really one of the really driving forces of this community, is that willingness to, like, hey, I know we just played a game and we're just saying, but if you need anything, you let me know.
Man, you just make me tear up all over.
Yeah, I'm all sorts of a softie.
That's what she said.
Oh God, you would hope not.
All right. Well, with that, dice are fickle bitches.
All right, thanks for tuning in. Later, everybody.
Background music. Flying species. The yellow flying cock. To Iris. Meeting in a black hole. The use of these human works of music is granted under the current Creative Commons license terms and agreements. From the freemusicarchive.org, from the artists as listed. Thank you. Goodbye.